I'm Davey Murphy. I'm an integrative psychotherapist.
I'm Anthony Davis. I'm an integrative psychotherapist, coach, and clinical supervisor. Yeah, I thought today we can talk a bit about just our backgrounds in
Yeah,
therapy, how we got into the profession,
yeah,
particularly as men, and
we are men.
yeah, we are men.
We are
Yeah,
men.
cisgendered men.
Do you know what I was
And
thinking? I don't know if I've actually watched podcasts with two male psychotherapists.
I think I might have watched, I don't remember the name, but I think I might have watched
Yeah,
one. I watch a lot with coaches actually,
yeah,
kind of
yeah,
talking to each other. Again, I think coaching is more acceptable
yeah, 100%.
for men,
Yeah,
so they can talk more about it, but they never infuse like the therapy element. They say we're coaches.
yeah. It's safer language, isn't it? And I think coach feels very, I guess maybe because it's a sporting terminology as well. There's this
Yeah,
safety to coaching, and there's this idea with therapy that it's much more. I don't know. I guess what's the stigma towards therapy?
it's. I think it kind of comes from like cultural background and family history, views around mental health. If you go to therapy, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah,
You need to be fixed in some way. And I think for men, they equate therapy with you have to share emotions. I don't share emotions, therefore therapy's not for me.
yeah,
But a coach, you don't share emotions, even though you do. But a coach, you don't share emotions. You kind of get in there and fix or change behaviors, enhance performance, do better at work.
And I think in the UK, I think even the term therapy is relatively new, and I would say like counselling's been the kind of go-to term. Always, from my experience growing up, is there's a stigma around counselling. You wouldn't want to admit it.
Mm.
You wouldn't want to say you did it. I've got a background working in schools, so in youth work, and none of the boys would want people
Mm.
to know they're going to see the school counsellor. So I was classed as a mentor, because that's again another safe language mentor.
Okay.
He's just mentoring me through my studies, maybe.
Okay.
But actually, in reality, it was counselling and crying and
Mm.
sadness and heavy stuff and stuff to do with their families, and so they enjoyed it,
Mm.
and then they would recommend it to their mates.
Yeah, the mentoring.
Yeah, the mentoring.
Yeah.
But I think it was actually quite healthy. But I think you have to model it. It has to become so. Particularly when my experience working with male clients is there's a lot of fear and nervousness upon the first session. A lot of
Mm.
kind of this is going to be what's this going to happen? What's this man going to be like?
Mm.
What's he going to do to my brain a little bit?
Mm.
And if you can make that first session something feel normal,
Mm.
then I think the other sessions then do come a lot easier. And then most of people I think they find they start looking forward to it.
I have a background a bit similar. I come from a social work
Yeah,
background. So I'm from the U.S. So when I trained there, I actually worked in schools. I thought I wanted to be a
yeah,
school
yeah,
social worker. And social workers there, they're known to do counseling, but also care management. So I worked with a lot of like young boys there. And when you're going to see the social worker, you're also going to be doing the therapy as well. So it's kind of known that you're doing counseling, but you don't actually say it. But again, quite similar to yours, like they will come in, I'm going to see the social worker, I'm going to talk for a bit, but then it kind of delves into a very emotional, deep processing. And then when I came to the UK in 2010, a lot of the social workers here weren't doing the counseling piece. They were just doing the care management. So you go
yeah,
in, assess someone, put in services, but then what they don't realize is that you're also doing counseling because you have to help them to feel safe. You have to help
yeah,
them to accept services. You have to deal with like life traumas and life difficulties, and you're doing some family counseling as well because the families are involved, and then you're kind of dealing with other services, so there's a lot of relationship building. So I was doing counseling, but you
yeah,
can never
100%.
say
Yeah.
that. And then I wanted to get back into psychotherapy where I originally trained in the States, and I had to do an entirely different training.
So you trained in psychotherapy first, and then went into social work, and then come back to psychotherapy.
So I trained in social work first, but
Okay,
the training in social work was primarily being a psychotherapist, an
cool,
integrative
got it.
psychotherapist.
Yeah,
So we learned various therapeutic modalities, but we also learned case management, research. So once you finish your master's, you can essentially go into private practice if you want.
oh wow,
Yeah. So you become
good
licensed
degree.
and you can do that. So when I came to the UK, I thought I could just continue that. Very, very different.
Yeah,
You're a social worker, you're a care manager, then you move up to being a senior practitioner, and then an operational lead, and
yeah,
then service manager, etc.
yeah, they're quite different
So it was
professions.
quite different. And I'm
Yeah,
not sure why it's so segregated because you need to do some element of counseling. Of course, you're doing the care management, but you need to do some element of counseling. You're working with people. You have to build those relationships. You have to use the core conditions. You have to delve into family history from a psychodynamic perspective. So you're using all these therapeutic approaches, but you're not actually saying you're doing it.
yeah,
So when I came in, I was like, no, this needs to change. And I was kind of getting exhausted just doing the care management. Then I became a manager, and I realized I hate managing people.
yeah, yeah,
it's
same.
it's
Yeah,
very different
hate
than
being
working with
managed as well.
people as a social worker, and so I decided to retrained in psychotherapy, got my diploma, then got my master's, and started my private practice, and here I am.
Yeah.
So I mainly work with adults, primarily between the ages of 18 to 35, 40. Range of different issues, work with a lot of men, work with a lot of the LGBTQ plus community, Black and minority ethnic. So most of my clients are Black queer men that have either never accessed therapy or went to a therapist that was of a different ethnic background.
Yeah.
Mainly white middle-aged women, I hate to say, and they didn't feel heard or seen. So they
Yeah.
wanted to come to a therapist that they could identify with. So that's most of my clients. And I also do some coaching as well, but I do therapeutic coaching. So it infuses the counseling piece of it as well. So that was my master's, doing integrative counseling and coaching.
Yeah.
Because again, it's hard to separate the counseling or therapeutic piece from coaching, I feel. But coaching is beneficial to incorporate. So yeah, I infuse all of that into my practice, and I find it's quite beneficial. And now I'm as a supervisor as well, I'm helping other therapists that are newly qualified or even qualified and worked for a while to navigate the profession. So yeah, it's great.
So you kind of, in some ways, and I think I find this myself, you're the first experience of therapy for a lot of people.
A lot of men, yeah. For a lot of men, I'm the first experience of therapy. Like, they've heard of it, or they've been told you need to go to therapy.
Yeah.
And then after kind of procrastinating and avoiding, it's a crisis that happens. So either they're made redundant, or they've had a relationship breakdown, or they've had some kind of family conflict they're trying to work through, or they just feel some adverse physical reactions. A lot of the men I work with say, oh, I have a lot of headaches, or I have trouble sleeping, or my stomach is always in knots and I'm always nauseous. And that's essentially anxiety that's been suppressed for many, many years. And then they'll come and say, I can't really sleep. I'm feeling quite low. I'm feeling a bit worried. I'm not quite sure what's going on there. My GP said I should see a therapist, or my friend said I should see a therapist, or my partner said I should see a therapist. So those are a lot of men that come through. But then once you start to kind of delve into the physical elements of their presentation, you get to the root of what's going on with them. It can become a pretty healing experience.
It's interesting you touched on the body stuff. I like my own experience of therapy personally is I was kind of entirely detached from the fact my body has any value to me, and so as a man I never took any information from my body. I just thought it was this kind of separate, it sounds so silly, but this separate part of me that didn't make any sense. And I think one of the things that's been interesting through therapy is realizing like it communicates to me.
Oh yeah.
And I think often with men, I think there's a lot of sense of like my brain isn't doing well, or I'm not sleeping well, or other things might be going on, anxiety, fear, but they don't necessarily put the two and two together as one whole being.
Yeah.
And I think that's quite fascinating, because it's definitely something I've learned a lot from, in terms of like, how do I relate to my body? When do I feel sad? Because often sadness doesn't necessarily show up as, particularly if you suppress sadness, it doesn't show up as tears first.
Yeah.
It will show up as something in the
Traditional
body,
way of
that kind of like
sadness.
heaviness in your chest, or your eyes start to feel heavy, or you want to leave even, like that's another example. And I think sometimes recognizing that, I've seen a lot of success in is like you are sad, you just don't show it, and I'm recognizing that.
Or you don't show it in the way it should be shown.
Yeah, the traditional
You're not
way of showing
crying,
it.
you're not like sitting in a corner, or you're not avoiding.
Yeah.
But your body's definitely feeling it. And making that connection is so important. Same with me. Like I grew up where your body's used as a vehicle for sport.
Exactly.
Or for some kind of sexual activity, or to fight. That's what the body's used for. Is not used to actually feel or process emotion. Emotion's here. It's in your head. That's why they say,
separate.
if you're sad, it's in your head, it's going to go away, don't worry about it. But then your body's feeling that tension, or you're feeling stomach upset, or you're having constant headaches, or you're not able to sleep. They're like, well, it'll be fine.
Yeah, you'll get better.
You'll get better.
And I think where addiction, because I work with a lot of people that have addiction problems, and I think where that comes in is there's that numbing of the body, or altering the body with a substance to kind of get that effect.
Yeah.
Whereas actually there's other ways to do it, where you can relate to your body and start to actually feel safe in your own form. And I guess when we create our therapy spaces, it's about making a space that immediately feels safe, comfortable. I'm not a big fan of using the word safe space, because I never heard it before therapy.
Okay.
So I don't like to say that word, because I feel it's slightly artificial. But I do want it to be a safe space. And I think I want it to be a space where you can come in, particularly as a man, feel free to discuss and talk about what you are, what your brain's going on, what you like, what you don't like. And I don't know what your experience is like as a man, but I think I've found the freedom I have in conversations as a man, it has always been quite limited. There's a lot of boundaries, safeguards I've put on myself, things I don't communicate, times where I've communicated emotion and it's been kind of shot down, or seen as weakness, or seen as, or vulnerability that's been exploited. And so I've become, Not anymore, thankfully. But for a large part, you become quite guarded, or I've become quite guarded. And I see that with guys that like, I've said something that's quite personal. Am I allowed to say that? Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
I've cried. Are you going to judge me? It's like, no, not at all. And so that creates that freedom to have a completely open dialogue, which I think you do build over a few sessions. It never happens in the first session, but that first session is that kind of touch point where you go, oh, can I say this? Am I allowed to say this? Is this okay? And you're like, yeah, sure. That's absolutely fine. I don't have an issue with it.
I think what I find is that most male clients, almost in a way, want to test whether you can actually tolerate or hold their emotions, because from their past history, if they share their emotions, it wasn't received or accepted.
Yeah.
They were told to ignore it, suppress it, or the reaction was one of avoidance. So they're almost in a way, when they come to therapy, wanting to know, are you going to do the same thing to me?
Yeah.
Are you going to reject me? Or are you going to dismiss me? Are you going to tease me? Or make me feel that my emotions aren't valid? Can you accept this and hold this?
Yeah.
So it's always that kind of testing out initially. And also, interestingly, making sure that it's confidential. Like, I work with a lot of men from like the corporate sector, and it's still a lot of stigma associated with mental health in the corporate sector, in the workplace. And the one thing I want to know is everything said here not going to be shared? And I was like, yes, it's confidential.
Yeah.
The only way would have to be shared is if you're at risk to yourself or other people.
Yeah.
But otherwise, everything that's shared here is fine. And also, being diagnosed is a big thing that men want to avoid, particularly depression and anxiety. They want to avoid that at any cost. They would find any other word to categorize what that could be. And if there's any indication that it could be in their records, they want to avoid that as well. And medication. A lot of men do not like to take medication. Particularly antidepressants, anti-anxiety meds. They'll take the benzoids, so they'll take a lorazepam in a minute, but they wouldn't take like a longer term antidepressant or anti-anxiety med, even though it would be scaffolding and
they see it as weakness, isn't it?
They see it as weakness, and they see it as like changing their brain, and they say they don't want to feel like a zombie or have their chemistry changed in some way or feel dependent on it. So there are some clients who I feel, you know what, an antidepressant will be helpful for you.
Well, it's that hyper independence, isn't it? It's interesting when you use the word dependent. Like, I guess you can become dependent on therapy, but not in necessarily an unhealthy way, but you can see it as part of your self-care.
Oh yeah.
And I think a lot of people start to, for me, I find real reward when a client starts to budget therapy into their monthly budget, because I think, they're like, this is just part of my life now. For however long I see it. And I think there's so many good perks to that, because if you ever do miss a session, you've got a little bit of extra money. But on the other side, it's just not this burden to you anymore. And I think you're taking yourself seriously. And I really like it when someone's doing that, because therapy for some people is just part of your routine. It's part of your self-care routine, and it's a way of looking after yourself. But there is this thing, and where it's come from, I'm never entirely clear, is that I shouldn't need anyone. I shouldn't need help. I shouldn't need support. I shouldn't need, you mentioned like medication. I shouldn't need to see a therapist. I should be able to handle this on my own. It's a terrible way of looking at life. And I don't even think as a therapist I'd hate to handle it on my own.
It's tricky because I think traditional views of masculinity is that you have to be strong, independent. Any kind of help you get is being vulnerable, is very feminine. So therapy's equated with femininity. Women go to therapy, men don't. Women talk about their issues and their emotions and problems. Men hold it in and deal with it and fix it and get it done. So I think with therapy, it's really kind of weeding through some of those barriers for men and saying, no, therapy can be a way for you to develop agency, for you to work out any internal conflicts, for you to make decisions and figure out what's right for you, but also to share your emotions. And I like to use safe space. I think it's I think the word safe kind of just brings down the walls, because when men come in, they've been in so many unsafe spaces.
I agree.
Or spaces where they couldn't be their authentic selves. And I think saying this is a safe space, is a space that is yours, this is your time, it just kind of brings down those barriers and makes them feel like, okay, I can actually be myself here. I don't have to be a version of myself or a version of a masculine man that's going to be acceptable.
I guess my reaction to safe space probably from like seeing counsellors grow, at various points, and seeing other people come in and say, kind of impose that on the area. This is a safe space, you can talk, and it isn't actually a safe space. So I use the word carefully, and I agree with the concept, because I want a client to feel the safe space, but I like them to feel it before I say it, just so it feels you feel internally, I know that's a safe place for me. And it's great to have that as any kind of person. I think it's so interesting because I was just thinking, I'm a sports fan, and like often the sports that do the best are sports where men have to rely on each other. And it's so odd that there's such a reliance, accepting that you have to rely on your teammates to have success. And then as a man in the general world, you have this idea that I don't and shouldn't rely on anyone.
And I think the reliance is quite different when it comes to therapeutic process because, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think with sport, it's more physical activity. We're trying to achieve the goal of winning.
Yeah.
Therefore, I need you to make sure that we win.
Yeah.
Whereas I think with therapy, it's just a reliance on yourself being able to process what you're experiencing. You have to tap into emotion, which has traditionally not been acceptable.
Yeah, 100%.
And again, is an emotion of sadness acceptable? Not in sport. Anger, happiness.
Well, if you lose, it's okay.
If you lose, but you can be angry, you can't be sad.
You can cry. It's weird. There's very odd boundaries around crying. Obviously, like Rory McIlroy cried recently when he won the Masters, and so you seem to be able. There's these really odd nuances of male crying being acceptable, and there's loads of areas where it's not, and it fascinates me because I just think if you're sad about anything, you're sad about anything. You know, I often talk about the idea of growing up. I'm not the most empathetically driven when it came to pets and animals. And I always thought if someone came to me and said they'd lost a pet, I was like, well, why does that matter to me? That's just an animal. And what I've learned to realise as I've developed in empathy is like, it's not my relationship with your animal that matters, it's your relationship with your animal.
Exactly.
And so I think sadness is one of those things where you train yourself. I'm allowed to be sad about what I'm sad about, not I'm allowed to be sad about things that are deemed okay or acceptable or, you know, particularly as a man, are deemed masculine to be sad about. You know, I can cry at a funeral, but every other part of my life I can't cry. That's ridiculous. Like, you can cry when you feel hurt. And I think some of the big things that come up is, you know, working with men is, you know, I work with a lot of guys who have been distanced from their children, divorces, breakdown of relationships, emotional abuse in relationships, and these kind of things are sad.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I'm not allowed to cry about it. Well, who said that? Why didn't you? And I think one of the real privileges, being a male therapist, is that you get to change the term because there's only two of you in the room. So in my world, if I say, well, why can't you cry about that? That feels totally normal to me. Oh, right, now suddenly it is normal in this space, and that goes back to creating the safe space where we think things like this are okay and normal and healthy, and I love that.
And I know we're talking a lot about crying as a display of sadness,
we are,
but it doesn't always have to be crying.
No.
It could be any other area. It could just you just physically feeling the sadness, and just understanding where you feel that within your body. And I work with a lot of men that experience trauma. And that's another reason why I like to use safe spaces, because they've been in so many traumatic spaces that have not felt safe. And coming to you, they want to have that reassurance that you can help them feel safe, because they feel in the present so unsafe because of the trauma from the past. The sadness for a lot of men that experience trauma that I've worked with is not always crying, because when they cried in the past, it's been confronted with some form of abuse.
Yeah.
So it's finding other ways of processing and understanding that sadness that's not just crying. Because a lot of men I work with that experience trauma, they say, I can't cry, it's too much for me. Or I feel like my tears are all dried up because I have to cry in secret. And I say, that's fine. How else do you feel sadness? What is that like for you? Tell me where you feel it in your body. And working through that is really, really healing and beneficial.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah. It's heavy to go into it, because I think sometimes, I always call it weeping, because I like to differentiate between crying and weeping. And I think sometimes if you haven't cried in a long time, it comes out as kind of a soul weep. And it can be too overwhelming and too heavy and completely destabilising on who you are. And so I think that has to be done very carefully. And so I think managing how to come up and down and realising when it's appropriate to, you know, timings are a big thing in therapy, as we know. Like, if you can see that someone's getting quite agitated 5 minutes before the end of the session, it's not appropriate. And as a therapist, it's important that we can kind of bring someone down and kind of help manage that, because otherwise you're going to send them out into the world completely destabilised, and that would be really unethical in my opinion. So we might do a little bit of emotional language, but not necessarily push into that heavy stuff there. And then maybe revisit it at the start of the next session.
I find mindfulness helps with clients that become heightened and dysregulated. Just bringing them back to the, again, I use safe space, to the room in the present, because that's where they feel that they're safe in that moment. So if I have a client who's been quite heightened in their emotional state and they're quite upset, and it's nearing the end of the session, I would say, let's take the last few minutes just to bring it back to the present. Just do a body scan, some deep breathing. And in most cases, that's able to calm them down. But I think it's hard because sometimes they don't disclose that.
Yeah.
And they may leave the room, or as they're leaving, say like a doorknob comment of,
Doorknob comments. Yeah.
I feel really upset. Goodbye. See you next week.
Right,
I'm like,
okay.
wait a second.
Yeah.
I wish this was disclosed before. So sometimes that's out of your control.
Yeah, no, good for that. And I think actually as well, like it's also to flip the table completely, but happiness is another funny one, because I know we've touched on a lot about sadness, but having someone celebrate you, encourage you, I think it's always interesting when you have a session that's just pure good and joy. And sometimes people will be like, oh, I didn't, probably should have talked about something else there,
Something sad.
or
Or
something bad, and
challenging.
like, no, like that was good. Like it's great to see and to encourage and celebrate. And I love the phrases like, I'm proud of you, I'm proud of how you've handled that. They were phrases that I know were quite absent in my own life, and they carried just such power. I can never quite understand how, if you have a caring role over someone, why you wouldn't say I'm proud of you when there's an obvious moment to do it. Exactly. But it does seem to happen a lot, and it feels harder to not say it than to say it. So I love having those moments, and I think realising the power you have to, your client's done something really, for them, really difficult, significant, work through a scenario, maybe talk to the boss about a raise where they never would have done that before. Who knows what it would be? But to say like, oh, I'm really proud of how you handled that. It's like, oh, I don't need praise. I shouldn't need praise, should I? Why wouldn't you need praise? It's great to do things for praise. Even there's the term, I don't know if you hear it in yours, but there's this kind of negative association around attention-seeking behaviour. But I think like attention-seeking is quite a normal human thing. I seek attention. I think it's kind of, in the right way, quite healthy. So sometimes people think, oh, I shouldn't need people to praise me for that, seeking attention. Well, why not? Like, it's nice to get a bit of encouragement and praise and be told you've done well. And I think as a therapist, we carry a power to speak over the things we've co-created and worked on in the space and say, I'm really proud of you for doing that. You've handled that really well. And I'm like, oh, and you can see that reaction of like, oh, praise, wow, that's heavy.
With a lot of men, they find it hard to take compliments and praise. Again, they see it as something that should just happen. Oh, I should be doing well. I should be overexerting myself. And because they haven't heard it from their caregivers or when they were younger, it seems quite foreign to them. And they think therapy, once they've been able to go through the process, has to be purely negative. They talk about all the sad stuff. Nothing can be celebrated. And then when you, like you mentioned, have a good session, they say, oh, well, should I talk about something negative? I'm like, no, you can just talk about all the amazing things that are happening in your life. I'm happy to hear it. I'm very proud that you've been able to do that. You've been very assertive, or you've been able to achieve that. Take it in, embrace it, own it. I think owning a lot of this is quite difficult for men because, again, they might equate it with some element of vulnerability. If they feel that they can own and sit with that celebration, because men have to be strong and stoic and constantly driven, constantly provide, and just sitting with their own level of achievement and purpose in a way. It can be quite challenging.
Patting yourself on the back, like,
exactly.
If you work hard, if you're doing things well, if you've managed to keep a job even for a mental health crisis, if you've managed to turn up for your kids every day even though you're struggling with an addiction, if you've managed to be a good partner to your partner even though you're having difficult thoughts, like, well done. Like, you've done all right, man. Like, there's work to be done. I can do better. Well, maybe you can, but like, let's just take a moment and go like, you've done really well, like that you're doing. And I think sometimes that lack of praise and even communicating that to their in relationships, like, I know relationship work can be quite important, and it's like, just tell someone you like praise. Say actually, it really makes a difference to me when you say I've done a good job at work or I'm working hard. And I think that's really, it's funny, you think you don't need it, but I need it.
Of course. You need that reassurance that that people can recognize the good things you're doing. And I think it goes back to attachment. Like, they've never really had that secure, healthy attachment with their caregivers that actually recognize the good things they're doing, particularly when it comes to like school, and either you had to do exceptionally well and constantly overachieve without any praise because it was expected, or you didn't do well and you were constantly belittled and rejected and told to do better. So it's usually one end of the spectrum or the other, and that just equates to very insecure attachment styles. So they approach praise with an element of it's not real, or I didn't do enough, I don't feel enough. And again, it just kind of feeds into that kind of anxious attachment that they formed with their caregivers. So it's almost saying, no, I want to form this healthy attachment with you, in a way almost reparenting, and being that healthy caregiver they should have had when they were younger, and saying, I see you, I hear you, I want to praise you in this moment. And then it's almost like the light bulb moment once they feel that in the room.
I like to often describe myself in parts and almost there's one me, of course, there's a Davey, but I like to think there's also kind of a Davey running alongside me who notices some of the good stuff that I do and goes like, well done, mate, or gets me like, and these can be little things like I'm quite food orientated. I love good food, and it might be a chocolate bar, or it might be, I got myself a Lego set the other day because I love Lego, but like, just to pray, like almost like, well done, mate, you've done really well recently, here goes a little thing, or I'm going to take you to that place you want to go to. And I sometimes say, when was the last time you did something nice for yourself, or when was the last time you like G'd yourself up, kind of thing? And they're like, what do you mean do that? Why would I do that for? Like, I don't need that. And like, why not? Like if no one else is doing it, at least do it for yourself.
Do it for yourself. Exactly.
And I think particularly it's interesting you touched on the idea of school and that negative feedback, because I was thinking about, obviously in the UK there's kind of a big conversation being had about kind of neurodivergence and different ways of the brain thinking, and one of the things that's coming out of school a lot is a lot of kids are just really struggling because they are being treated. I heard someone say the other day, if you don't give someone the right label, they're given the wrong labels. So naughty, distant, socially awkward, weird's another term. Like all these terms can be labelled over you, but actually it's you've got something, a different way of functioning, your brain's a different way of working. And I think particularly for adults who are discovering maybe they've got something like autism or ADHD or other things that are in that kind of pathway, being really kind to yourself when you know you've achieved something is crucial, because no one else might see it. They might think, oh, well, everyone should be able to do that. It's like, well, no, that's not true.
Constant comparison.
It's horrendous. And it's like, you've done really well today. Like, you've taught, like that's amazing. Yeah, but everyone should be able to do that. And actually, I think that's even a kind of self-imposed thing that I've seen people do. It's like, no, like, you've done really well. You know you've done well. You know you've achieved something there. And I think that's really powerful. Yeah.
You know, I try to tell my clients, and I know this is quite cliche saying, but comparison is the thief of joy.
Yeah.
And if you're constantly comparing yourself to others, you're never going to feel enough. And it's just kind of owning your own process and your own journey and what that means for you and what progress looks like for you. It doesn't have to be in comparison to somebody else or what they're doing, because I get a lot of men constantly comparing themselves to their colleagues. They say, oh, they got a promotion or they're in a stable relationship or they're making more money. I'm not making that, therefore I'm lesser than, I'm not enough. And they're saying, well, yes, they're doing that, but what do you want to do? What are your goals? What areas do you want to succeed in? What feels comfortable for you? And then we bring it back to them. Yes, it's a struggle, but once they start owning that process, they minimize that comparison. They're able to start praising themselves and feeling enough. But it's hard because they've, again, going back to when they were younger, were constantly compared to their peers. If they have ADHD or ASD, they weren't acting normally. They were constantly unfocused or unorganized, unable to make friends, and were constantly bullied. And why can't you be like the other kids? Why can't you be like your sister or your cousin or any other family members? You're not like them. You're not normal. So they've spent years and years being compared, and then once they're adult men, it's hard to shed that comparison, and then it just kind of transfers into more adult relationships and situations. So you kind of have to weed through all of that earlier stuff in order to get to the core of like not being in a place of needing to compare or feeling that they're not enough. But I always get men saying, I need to do better. I need to do better. It's not good enough. I need to do more. And then it gets to the point of like, well, are you doing enough now? Bring it back to the present.
What would be enough?
Are you doing enough now? And if you can honestly say right now at this point, I'm doing exactly what I should be doing and can do, then that's enough. And enough can change, so that maybe the next day you can do a bit more. And that can be your enough. And the next day. But it's always like, I need to do more now. But
it's also recognizing that people have different capacities, and what you may be able to achieve with your enough is not necessarily the same as someone else. So I think I think particularly when I'm working with ADHD, it's like, I should be able to do this. I should be able to work 9 to 5 is a big one that's coming up a lot, I'm noticing. It's like, maybe you can't. Well, why can't I? Why can't I do what they do? Because it just doesn't seem your brain works that way. Oh, but you know, why doesn't
they can do it? Why can't I?
It's like, well, they're different to you. I should be able to go up and, you know, if you're working with people with autism, I should be able to just, you know, eat food like everyone else, or I should be able to talk to someone that I want. You know, I should be able to make conversation. Well, why would you be able to? Like, that's not necessarily. You're different, and like working out how to be really, really kind to yourself. I'm a big fan of like being kind to yourself. Is like, can you create a life that's actually kind to you rather than punitive? So like waking up every morning and going to a job that you hate, that's mundane and boring, like, is that actually kind to you? Like, but you know, pays the bills. Like, well, okay, maybe it does for now, but could you start to think of a way to be more like kind to yourself? Even like creativity, like a lot of men squash creativity. Involve that creative side of yourself. Like, how would that look in the world? And start to actually live a life that you enjoy, rather than just live some life that you have to live because you have to sacrifice yourself for the greater good of being some kind of hero.
It's building that like daily routine where you're consistently doing things that you want to do.
I like that.
I find that so many men do things they don't want to do. So many things that like I'm doing all this and I don't enjoy it, or I don't like it, or it's not fulfilling, and I'm thinking, well, why?
Yeah.
Or I know like there's things around work that you don't like. That makes sense. There are things around personal relationships that you don't like. That makes sense. But if then the bulk of your day is constantly engaging in activities that are not serving you, then you can think about a way of shedding some of that.
Yeah.
And infusing things that you're doing, activities that you can engage with that serve you, make sense to you, and there are things that you enjoy. And I think once you shifted it into that framing, it's, again, the light bulb moment.
Yeah.
Because they've been conditioned to do things that they should be doing as men. And it just really allows them to develop that agency.
You should sacrifice for everyone else.
Exactly.
It becomes particularly prominent. I don't know if you work with people that have children, but it's quite common people bring their children to activities or hobbies or interests and then do like none for themselves. And it's like, oh, like, what do you do for yourself? I don't have time. It's like, well, okay, well, that's like, one, like, is that true? And possibly it's true. Life can feel very busy. But two, like, what's that model? So it models to your children that their hobbies really matter. But as an adult, my interests, what I like, what I'm into is completely irrelevant. Like at my house, it's got like Lego all over the place, and it's like, 'cause I like Lego, you know, like you don't have to like it yourself, but that's what I like, and that's, you know, you can see that's childish, whatever. I don't really, largely don't care, but like that's something I like, and I think being able to have what you like, be interested, have things that you are into, it's one of the things, one of the strengths I see when I work with autistic clients is when they really kind of delve into their hyperfocus and allow it to become a real part of them, and then make it kind of mandatory. And I really like that. I'm like, yeah, great. Like, have a thing that's really for you, that is your thing that you like, and that the world kind of to some degree rotates around, as opposed to you rotating around the needs of everyone else. But yeah, giving yourself things that you like, things that make you feel like you, rather than just roles. So you might be a worker, you might be a parent, you might be a partner, you might be
the multi-layers of your identity.
Yeah, but you're never you.
Yeah.
You know, you don't do anything that actually makes you feel like you. I sometimes feel like we're in a, I don't know if you feel like this, but somewhat privileged position as a psychotherapist, because it is a role that comes out of you, as opposed to a role that like a job that I do. It comes out of me being a therapist. It became a journey to become a therapist, but it almost came quite naturally. I've always enjoyed deep conversations with people. I've small talk sometimes been a bit of a struggle, because I'm like, where's the big bit we can talk about? So I think it's come out of me that, and I think sometimes I guess that's a privilege in some ways, because I have a life that allows me to enjoy it, because I enjoy what I do with a large chunk of my week. But that doesn't mean that other people can't find their thing they enjoy.
Exactly, and I think understanding and owning what is helpful for you and beneficial for you, and quite similarly, I was always the one growing up that people talk to. I was a good listener. I was quite introverted and quiet, so that helped a bit. But I always enjoyed being the one that people came to talk and find that support. And I grew up in the church. I grew up Catholic, and the priest was always the one that I would go to speak to, and they were always the one that was very healing and reassuring and would actually accept me. The priest was the first one I told that I was gay, and he was like, that's perfectly fine, God loves you. And I was like, oh my, wow, I want to do this. And I actually thought about being a priest when I was 16, because I wanted to be someone that other people can turn to. I eventually went towards doing psychology, but that's how I learned about being that human self and being there for the people and being present for the people, and how just healing that was. And I wanted to feel that in my job. I wanted my day-to-day work to be where I can offer that to other people. And then learning how to do that, learning which clients I wanted to work with and which environments I wanted to work in, having that human-to-human connection when I was younger with people that I trusted. It just made me feel like that's the type of work I want to do. And yes, I've done other things, like I've, with the social work, care management, and managing other people. Still that human-to-human connection, but it's nothing like being a therapist.
Oh yeah, like it's the best. And I think you want your therapist to love being a therapist.
Hopefully. or at least feel that it's fulfilling and meaningful, and not just a job. It has to be a vocation. It has to be something where you're feeling sense of purpose from.
Totally.
If you just go in to clock your hours and then leave, then you're not doing therapy. I think you're just doing a job.
And I think that does happen at times, but I think certainly I often get the question, you must feel so tired after what you here all
Listening to
day.
everyone's problems.
Yeah, and I'm like, now I feel like entirely the opposite. I feel like energized. I feel appreciative. I feel like when someone chooses to share with me some of the things that they've never shared with other people or found very hard to share, I feel a great sense of privilege and appreciation for that, and I take that very seriously.
Yeah.
And I feel so blessed to be able to sit there with someone and work with them through these moments. And you form these kind of really, the therapeutic relationship's such an odd one in the world because it's so incredibly deep and yet so incredibly boundaried. And if you bump into each other at Sainsbury's or Tesco or
But how do you negotiate that
yeah,
contact?
you may not even talk to each other.
Yeah.
And that's quite common the case. But doesn't mean there's not there's a real depth when you're together in the room. And I love that I get to be that deep with so many people. And I love that I can carry that, and I love that I'm able to kind of talk in a way that allows people to go into depth, and I'm able to hold the emotion in a way that allows them to feel that they can share the difficult part of them. But I do treat it as it's a real privilege. It's a joy.
For us, as we're in private practice, we can operate in that depth. I think for therapists that maybe work for organizations or in the NHS, it's not always those opportunities.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think we both have that privilege of being able to have that very strong human to human long-term connection with clients and really see it as like a strong vocational path. But yeah, I do have colleagues that work in the NHS and they're seeing like clients in primary care for like 10-minute sessions sometimes, and I'm like, how can you possibly do any real work there, or like very short-term counseling via like CBT? So, and I worked in those environments before. I used to work for a charity doing 6 sessions of CBT.
Yeah.
It was fine, but I didn't feel that emotional depth and that vocational drive that I feel working in private practice.
Yeah,
It's a
100%.
very different way of working and a sense of purpose that I feel. So yeah, I think it's needed. I think that short-term work is needed. I think having those opportunities for people to have access to those therapeutic supports is needed. But for me, definitely having that private practice approach is.
Yeah. Well, you get to evaluate how successful the work's been, and I think with long-term work, and I think you work long-term, it's very hard to like put that down on paper how effective it's been. It's a feel thing largely. Like I know that it's been, me and the client will know there's been progress and success, but whether we could evidence that on in a data form would be very hard. But I think that allows someone to have, and I've always said to people, the benefit of having a private therapist is that we might work together for 6 months, you might stop, and then in the year's time something happens and you know exactly where I am, you know my number, you know my details, and you come back to me. Whereas you might get a waiting list, or you might get 6 sessions, which sometimes isn't quite right for the thing you're dealing with. Great for certain subjects, but for some things much more, you need that longer term work. But also there's that relationship and
the therapeutic relationship is
everything.
Is everything. Yeah, you need that.
Yeah.
Without it, nothing's going to be able to progress. And like with my longer term work, I always say, because I have clients that maybe say, ask like, how long is it going to take?
Yeah, I get that all the time. Yeah.
Well, how long is a piece of string? But I usually say we'll do reviews every 5 sessions. We'll see where you are. We'll evaluate the relationship, evaluate your progress. But it's going to take as long as it takes for you to be able to process and work through what you come to therapy to explore. But I have clients I've worked with. I've been doing therapy for a little over 7 years now. I have clients I've worked with over 5 years.
Yeah.
Who started weekly. They reduced to fortnightly, then monthly, they paused, and then they come back for a chunk of sessions, and they paused again. And then they said, oh, can I have monthly check-ins? And I have clients, at least 4 or 5 different clients I've been working with in that way. And it's because they know me, I know them, I know everything about them. So to start with a new therapist will be incredibly difficult. Because I know pretty much the entire history, everything over the past several years. So, and it's interesting just having that relationship with clients.
Well, that's the relationship and trust, isn't it? And they know how you're going to turn up.
Yeah.
So they know no matter what they've got going on in their lives, you're going to turn up in the same state of mind. And it's a real, we have our own lives. We have our own challenges. We have things going on in our own personal lives. I make a point of that never within reason impacting the therapy space, and that's why supervision, all these kind of things are so important. But also like friendships for myself, like having a good personal life, good friends, good people around me is
practice what you
crucial.
Preach,
exactly. Yeah. Otherwise you're just lying. So that's so important, so that I can turn up and be there for them in the space, and turn up in the same way that I'm consistent, I'm reliable, I'm there, and they know what they're going to get, and that means they can do all the work they need to do. And I think probably in reality for a lot of clients, but maybe just for a lot of people, there's not many people like that in your world where how you turn up and they're going to be in the space to, well, relationships can't be like that anyway, but even just be in the space to hear you.
You're a constant for them. again, like you said, they know you, they know what to expect. But interesting how you also said like the practicing what we do as therapists in our day to day, not therapizing people,
Yeah.
but the concept of building those healthy relationships, repairing ruptures, looking at attachments, what's triggering for us, and how to build secure attachments.
Yeah.
I do that in my day to day.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's helped in my marriage, it's helped with my friendships, it's helped with dealing with very difficult people and just having that empathy first and not that defensiveness. And yeah, it has, being a therapist has helped me in my day to day life and helped me to really function as a human being and to kind of navigate this crazy world and like to focus on myself and what I need for myself and not to have external things really impact me. All the concept I've learned, all the practice with my clients has helped with that.
Become a lot more solid, like a tree, like a solid tree, as opposed to, you know, even little things like, you know, classic one would be like chores, which always seem to cause arguments for no obvious reason. But rather than always treating it as, why is this so annoying, this isn't done, or this hasn't been done the way I liked it.
Reframe it to something.
Yeah. Why am I annoyed by this? And I love that. I love that question. I love looking at myself and going like, why does this thing frustrate me as opposed to why are people frustrating me? Or, you know, why is that upsetting me rather than people are trying to upset me?
What's triggering me at this moment? What's going on for me now? Like what possible transference is happening with that other person? Who do I see this person as? It's making them upset. It's making me upset around them, and they haven't really done anything. And then you're kind of reflecting on, oh, they remind me of a bully I've had, or a conflict with my parents, or some other manager I've had that's upset me. It's not them; it's what's going on for me.
Yeah.
And having that ability to do that internal work,
I
think is really beneficial because most people aren't able to do it. They haven't really had the experience to.
And that protects people.
Training.
Protects the people around you from suddenly getting a version of you that's quite intense and overwhelming, and like suddenly you're like, I'm really angry at you, and it's like, why are you angry at me now? I don't know where that's come from. And I think it certainly helped as well with seeing other people as people that are not involved in my processes. So, you know, you work with so many people and you realise that they've all got their own worlds going on. And I think the people that I'm close to is giving them, I like to use the term good faith, you know, giving them good faith reasons why they might have done something that upset me. You know, okay, so I feel a bit annoyed by that, but is there a reason why that might be? Maybe they were busy, maybe they had stuff going on. And so actually, rather than trying to catch people out and have conflict unnecessarily or problems, actually instead trying to work through, why might that have happened, and is there a better reason why that might have happened? Is there a way that I can treat this in an empathetic way where we can build connection rather than disconnection?
It's being curious and asking the questions. Like, I think this is happening, can you clarify?
I
just want to make sure. This always happens with my husband. I always kind of check in and say, I'm thinking this, is that right? I don't want to assume, because once you start to assume, you start to mind read, then it can spiral into a conflict and a rupture. So it's helped a lot in our marriage. Like, we have a lot of conversations and we communicate a lot, and just being curious and empathetic has done wonders. And also I have my own therapist as well. So because I deal with a lot of heavy stuff, and yes, I have a lot of tools that I use for my own internal process, but having my own therapist and being able to work through things in therapy, like there's some historic stuff that's triggered with clients that I thought I dealt with, and I'm like, nope, it's still there. Let me talk about it with my therapist and figure out what's happening. And I think having therapy as a therapist is quite essential. I'm not sure if you have therapy. But,
well, it's interesting you say practice what you preach, because it's like it's that thing of like, if something upsets me or brings up for me, rather than go, I shouldn't be upset by that, I thought I'd worked with that already. It's just like, well, it is upsetting me. I'm not currently in therapy at the moment, but I'm about to go back into it because I've had a break. I guess when you do the degrees, you have 3 years of like mandated therapy that you have to do the whole time. So I think I wanted a break for a little while, and I'm going to go back into it soon, just after the busyness of setting up private practice and doing all that. So I'd like to get back into it, because I think there's real value in it, and I think it's okay to have breaks from it, but it's also knowing when you feel, I guess the word would be like dysregulated, when you feel a little bit like, oh, that's something I need to add back into my life right now. And I always say that to clients as well. I say like, we might finish our journey, and then we might be done for now. You might find in a little while you go,
because life happens.
I'm missing therapy again, and so you get back in and we start doing it again, or we do it less frequently, like you said, or you do it monthly, and you build it back into your timetable, but in a way that works for you. But it's always there as a thing that you can have in your life that helps you do well. And I also particularly helping people speak about having therapy themselves. Obviously, I'm very open about having therapy and being, obviously I'm a therapist, so I have to speak about that. But I was always very open about having therapy myself, and that sometimes surprises people. And even to clients says, do you guys have therapists? We often do. Yeah, I've had it in my past. So I think sometimes people, again, I know we go back to men, but I think for men to admit they have therapy feels quite shameful sometimes, or there's some odd stigmatized. But the amount of men I know who've spoken about therapy and found out the other person they're speaking to is also
in therapy,
and
and
oh right, okay,
yeah.
why were we all pretending that we were all fine? It's like, I don't know, but actually just creating that as a normal language. You're seeing it a lot more in like outside in certain different realms. You see a lot more kind of big public figures speaking about going to therapy.
It's becoming much more normalized, particularly.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah.
And I think people that I guess traditionally we would see as people that maybe wouldn't go to therapy because of their role or because of the position they're in. I know Tom Brady's spoken about having therapy for years, so that's really, but that's becoming quite a normal part of conversation, which I think is great, and I think can only be healthy, because if you need it, you need it, whether you feel like you need it or not. It's going to help you. It's just whether you end up going there and doing it.
Exactly. And I have clients who I've been referred to from their friends, and they say, "Oh, I work with Anthony. He's a great therapist. You should work with him. You should have a first session and see." Yeah. And I've gotten to the point where a lot of my referrals are word of mouth. From former clients or clients I'm working with that they tell their friends about, and I think it feels reassuring that I'm doing something right, because you always think you're doing the right thing, but when clients say you're doing something right, you're like, okay, I think I'm on the right track, and it feels nice to have that.
It's so hard to know. Like, honestly,
you never know. You think you're doing it, but then something happens. But when the clients say you should, when they refer you to other people, and it's word of mouth, it's like, okay, I'm doing something right. I'm on the right path. Yeah. And I can praise myself, but also having that praise from clients is nice.
Yeah. I've got a little theory that I developed on my degree of how I assess how I am to the client, and I don't know if there's any validity in it, but I often start off with the idea that if I'm spoken about, if they say, "Oh, I'm going to therapy," I always find that quite interesting because it's depersonalizing. I'm not really a person yet. I'm just a process. And so I always think that's interesting. Okay, so currently I'm therapy. And then the level up is we start using the language of therapists. So they'll say, "Oh, I'm going to see my therapist." There's an ownership. There's a real person there. They're mine. I have a relationship with them. And then when I know that it's really got quite deep is when my first name comes out and almost friends and family seem to know me, even though they've never met me. They're like, "Oh, I was telling," they'll say, "I was telling my husband about, what you said the other day." I said, "Oh, Davey would have said this." And I'm like, "Oh, I'm Davey now." Like, I'm in your world. And though they've never met me, I've become this human person in their world. And I always think for me that's a little way of working out how deep is the relationship in therapy, from therapy to therapist to Davey. And if I'm Davey, I know there's there's somewhat of a real connection.
You develop that strong connection.
And they know I'm obviously spoken about enough that when when my name's mentioned, they're like, people are like, "Oh, I know that is. Of course, that's your therapist."
But they're developing that inner therapist as well, because they have you in their minds when they're trying to approach issues or problems or areas of their life. Like I have clients that say, "Well, they always think, what will Anthony do? I've thought about what Anthony said." And like, good, you're developing your internal therapist. We're on the right path. Let's keep that going. But I have a similar process with clients, and it's always fascinating how that develops, and it varies in time as well. It could be quite quick, and it could take months.
Sometimes it takes forever, and sometimes very quickly you get attached, and maybe that's attachment styles as well. I always find it interesting when someone comes in and they say, "Oh, I did that that thing you were speaking about last week's really made a difference this week." And I'm like, well, which thing was it? Because I say a lot of things and I kind of forget, but I really like the fact that whatever I said helped. But sometimes I have to get help on what it is I said that was useful. And sometimes they'll say it back and they'll be like, "Oh, I said that. It's pretty," I was like almost impressed by what I managed to say in the moment. I forget what I say.
I'll jot it down for next time.
I'm like, all right, that's pretty good, that one. And so I think there's nice to know that you exist and you're useful and you're helping and you're working through stuff, and you do really see it. Like I know sometimes it's a bit of an isolated space because it's hard to evaluate how you're doing, but sometimes you see stuff and you're like, wow, like it is so cool to see how much this has meant to you and how much this has helped you in your journey. And I think I get kind of goosebumps in those moments where you're like, this has completely transformed how you would have experienced this or your life, and it's super powerful.
And going back to that physical feeling, you can feel that with clients when they're progressing. It could be very unspoken. It could just be in the presence with you, I feel that you've changed. And that you can verbalize that, but it's a very powerful connection that you start to feel.
You feel like I remember in training we talked about this idea of the middle, the third, I guess they talked about as well, but sometimes you do feel this real, when something significant's happened, you both look at it and go whew, it's pretty cool, man. And I think I'm sure every therapist gets it, but I know you get imposter syndrome at times, and you kind of go like, why am I here? What am I doing? What am I offering? It really helps that people keep signing up to see me, because that helps me defeat the little imposter person. There's moments where I'm like, I can't deny this has been helpful, and I can't deny that however I am has helped you work through this, and I practice what I preach, and I'm really, I have to be like, wow, well done, man, well done, Davey. Like, and that's the other version of me that kind of sits there on the side and goes, wow, you did that, man.
Oh yeah, I've gotten to a point where I can honestly say I do my job well.
Yeah.
It's not just because I get referrals and I have a full caseload, but I feel that I'm doing my job well.
Yeah.
And I think if you can sit with that and own it, it's very powerful.
Yeah.
And I think clients can feel that. It's a very implicit feeling when you feel that you can do your job well, you can help that person. They feel it, and they want to be in that space with you and to work with you.
Yeah.
But I think if you're holding, I'm not sure what I'm doing, I don't know if I can support you with this, clients feel it.
Yeah.
And then they withdraw. So I think it's just sitting within like, I'm going to be here for you. I'm just going to be in this space and informing that relationship.
And that confidence, isn't it? So that someone comes in and they're hopeless, and they're like, I don't know if anything's going to change. I don't know how I fix this. How do I deal with this? And I guess you just have, I know you're a bit more experienced than me, so you've built up kind of a large caseload over the years, but you just have that backlog of like, I kind of know it's possible. Like, I've seen it. So like, I haven't seen it with you, but I know I have hope, and I think hope's a big part of therapy. I have hope that this stuff can change. So like, if you're in the mires of an addiction and you're really stuck in it, and you're like, I'm never going to get out of this, I'm like, well, I've seen people get out of it, and it's like, and people do ask, do you think this will help? Do you think you can help me? And I'm like, I don't want to give false hope, but I also want to be realistic and go, well, yeah, I do believe therapy works. Otherwise I probably wouldn't sit here. Now, I'm biased, but I have seen it change people's lives and change the trajectory of their life completely. And it's like those kind of, there's an old film, like the Sliding Doors film. Have you heard of it, with Gwyneth Paltrow? But it's about this idea of there's moments in your life where it goes one way or the other, and there's kind of two versions of yourself. And I think therapy could be a real sliding doors moment where someone comes in and goes, there's a version of themselves where they're like, I'm hopeless, I'm never going to be able to get through this is it, this is that. And then you meet a therapist who gets you and works with you, and suddenly you're like, oh, right, okay, so in a year's time you look back and go, I'm making decisions that I never thought was possible. I'm able to say no to things I never thought was possible. I'm able to do things that I couldn't even fathom doing. Things that like, and like there's I don't know if you heard the term fix a lot, but fix comes up a lot in therapy.
A lot.
I never had to fix that problem, but now it's gone. Because the problem was never a problem. It was a side effect of something much deeper. Exactly. So it's like, we didn't even fix that. We didn't need to.
Yeah.
That wasn't the problem. That was an adaptation, or I call it maladaptive way of coping with whatever you were going through. We didn't need to fix you. There's nothing wrong with you.
No. You're perfectly fine. It's just, it's difficult to manage certain situations.
100%.
And what a lot of clients sometimes don't realize is that they think it was some kind of superpower that they've developed in order to be able to move through this crisis. And I'm like, no, you actually had it within you all along.
Yeah.
I just facilitated that process with you, bringing it to the surface. Understanding it, owning it, and putting it into practice. But you had it within you the entire time.
Yeah.
You did the work. I just supported you through the process.
Yeah, I like that.
And again, it just helps them to build and empower them to go down a different path of being the person they want to be.
Well, it's weird in that one of the weird parts of therapy is like, if it goes really well, they leave you. Like,
I know, but it's interesting because I always work towards ending or pausing with the client. I always tell clients that the goal is not to have therapy forever. Yeah. So you're always keeping in mind, this goes back to my training, and particularly doing short-term work, but even with long-term work, I'm thinking about ending or wrapping up or getting to a point where they're developing their internal therapist. Of course, I want to make sure the client is held and supported throughout the process, but I'm always thinking about, well, how are we working towards you getting to a place of being self-sufficient, being able to manage crises, being able to manage difficult situations, being able to communicate effectively and form healthy attachments. I want to get you there. Yeah. That's our goal. So I always think about that. I don't tell the client initially, of course, because I don't want them to leave, but I always think about, okay, how can I get you to the place where you can be your own internal therapist and be able to manage in the world? But yeah, it's interesting that, because you never want to think about ending with clients, but it's it's
sad. I find the endings can be quite poignant and sad sometimes. You're like, oh, wow. I've got various different ways of managing endings that I find helpful. Co-create with the client if they've got some ways of managing an ending. Yeah. But I do think there's I always say that therapy's been really useful for you. This might be the end for now. You might find you pick it up again in the future. That might be with me, it might be with someone else. It's nice to end, and it's nice to do that. My placement was with a short-term thing, so you always had these like 6-session, sometimes 12-session endings that were very normal, and so you got very kind of versed in session 11 or session 5. Right, we're ending next week, so let's make sure we do that well. And it was useful, actually, kind of really valuable to learn how to do that well. And I think addressing the ending, and when you can feel things are coming to the end, and it might be that because the therapy's ended, or because of circumstance, or people moving, or various different things, or finances sometimes is the case. But like making sure we address it together in the room and go, look, we're coming to an end, and it's been a real pleasure.
Yeah, you have that attunement with clients. The clients feel it as well. When you bring it up, they say, yeah, I've been thinking about that also. I'm like, yep, we're attuned with that.
Yeah.
And you have that implicit connection when therapy is coming to a natural end or pause. And then you, agree with the client of, okay, well, use this session to maybe do a bit of review. The next session will be the last one, and they'll say, okay, that's fine for now.
Yeah.
But I've had, like, again, over the years of developing that kind of ending process and building those ways of tuning with clients, most of my clients that I pause with feel that it's coming.
Yeah.
So they're not surprised, they're not taken aback. But again, I think throughout the process, you're kind of working towards having ending in mind.
Yeah.
You're working towards the client developing that ability to be able to manage the various areas of their life. So when you bring it up, they've already gotten to a place they worked towards, and they feel, I'm okay.
And they got tools.
Yeah.
And that also gives you strength. I think if you work that way, to be honest, when the ending is an insight, and I've heard people go like, how, like you said, how long is it going to take? And I'm like, we're not there yet.
Yes.
We've got a little bit longer. It's like, I thought this would be quicker. I'm like, it probably won't be.
But that's the fixing mindset. That's wanting to be fixed.
Yeah, that's the fix. I thought you'd fix me in 6 to 12 sessions. I'm like, no, that's not going to be the case. And I think once you start to do away with that idea of being fixed short term, and you just settle into the relationship, settle into this as just a process, then I think you do start to see this change. But I think most of the change is quite gradual and happen slowly, and almost sometimes without noticing. Sometimes there's a very if you employ like kind of CBT strategies, there's stuff that you can use in the short term that really does work. Some classic ones, like often like play a sad song to be sad. That's what I sometimes recommend, or have some kind of comfort object when you're feeling anxious. But like those are very strategies short term, and they can help. But the longer term stuff where you really see true change, it kind of happens like almost slightly as a revelation. You're like, I wasn't anxious this week. Okay, cool. Right. What happened there for you? Like, I don't know, but I just didn't feel anxious. Okay, cool. Right. This is good.
And let's see if we can maintain that.
Yeah.
And that's, again, understanding triggers of anxiety and working through how to minimize them, or relationship anxiety and understanding how to minimize that. So again, once they've had that light bulb moment of I'm feeling different, then it's thinking, does that feel good for you? Yeah. Let's try to figure out ways of continuing that.
Yeah.
And then the real work can begin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Unless the anxiety comes in and goes like, I should probably be anxious because I'm not anxious.
Exactly.
All right, let's go there.
I know that's a normal way of feeling, but we're trying to work
towards
not feeling anxious. And it's almost normalizing anxiety as well.
Yeah.
So I see it as a spectrum. So we're all going to feel anxious at some point. It's a normal human reaction, a very primeval reaction, but it's okay.
Yeah.
You can feel anxious, but it depends on where you're on the spectrum.
Yeah.
If it's not manageable, we have to figure out a way of trying to manage it. If it's low level and manageable, that's perfectly fine.
And it's normal. Like if
that's completely
depending on the environment you grew up in, like if you grew up around people that were like abusive or angry or aggressive, of course you're anxious. Like, what do you think was going to happen? I often
worried about your safety.
Yeah, like I really like to normalize the behaviors of someone I work with, because they often think like, oh, why am I like this? I'm weird. I'm sad. I'm different. I'm anxious. I'm like, there's a point where you know enough about someone to go like, everything you've told me makes exactly like you're normal for what you've been through, but I'm not normal. Well, I think you are for like what you've been through. Like it's completely everything fits.
I always try not to use normal.
That
word just it doesn't sit well with me, because it always insinuates that something has to be a certain type of way. And when clients bring up, I'm not acting normal, I'm not being normal, I say, well, normal is very nuanced.
Yeah.
So what is your understanding of normal?
Yeah.
What does it mean for you? Not what someone else says. What does it mean for you? So if it does come up, I always bring it back to what it means for the client. But normalizing things, I think is very different than normal. It's something that is not stigmatized in a way. So anxiety can be normalized, but normal for the client is their understanding and experience of anxiety.
Yeah, that's
true.
True.
Differentiate the two. Yeah.
Often they're quite normal.
Yeah.
When I say it, because I think what does it mean to anyone? And it's like, yeah, you experience anxiety. So if when you were worried, it comes up a lot. School's fascinating. So like, you go to school and there's this kind of presupposed idea that everyone can just handle going into a classroom of 30 people they don't know, with a teacher they don't know, at 4 years old where they're barely verbal, and cope with that. And like, that's absolutely madness. Like, why would anyone be able to cope with that? I wouldn't like that as an adult. And so there's this kind of, oh, so you were quite an anxious child and you didn't want to go into school and you didn't want to leave your family. And what was done with that? Well, they just told me get over it and go into school. Well, yeah, and now you've got an anxiety problem because you had to suppress that from pretty much, even if it's secondary school. I didn't like going in. Why didn't I go in? I was being bullied. Well, yeah, that's pretty normal. Did anyone like ever address that? Oh no, they just said get over and go to school. Well,
everyone gets bullied.
Yeah,
get over it, defend yourself, ignore it.
Yeah. It's like, well, oh, right, so, and it's like, of course you're going to develop an anxiety problem because you've been forced to overcome and put in scenarios where you don't have the tools to do it. I often describe one of my anxieties from school as the lunch. I guess, I don't know if you call it in America, the canteen, maybe?
Oh, the cafeteria.
Cafeteria, lunch. I don't know what we'd call it, lunch hall, I think was the term I'd use. But I'd always find it quite difficult going into the lunch hall because you go in and it's like, where do I sit? Who do I sit with? And I had that, like, I'd feel quite anxious about who are the people, who are my people, where? And if the person you really knew wasn't in, you'd start to panic. And I felt that. And I thought that was something that I dealt with until, like, I went to uni and then there was a lunch hall. And I had the exact same. First day at uni, I go in as a over 30-year-old man, and I went in and I was like, "Ooh, I don't know who to sit with." And those things come up again, and you go, "All right." And then the only difference was, as an adult, was that I had me with me in an odd way, and I had me going, "It's all right, mate. You can sit on your own."
Exactly, perfectly fine.
And I was like, "Oh, what? Can I just sit on my own?" I said, "Yeah, you can sit on your own. You got your laptop in your bag if you want to play a game." "Oh, I could just play a game, be on my own." And that completely changed the scenario, and that's what I was missing as a kid, was anyone to go to validate, to encourage, to not bully, and not make me feel weird or different like that. And even there, I said, as a 30-year-old man, there's some kind of internalized thing that I should have been able to deal with that. But having yourself as a friend, and I know it sounds slightly odd, but I like that idea of be your own friend, be there with yourself, be looking after yourself, encourage yourself. Notice when you've done something that you couldn't do before. And I guess for a while, sometimes as a therapist, I play that character. I play that role in your life. But hopefully over time you can play that role in your life.
And not being self-critical also, because we're criticized so much, not just as individuals, but as a society. We always have to do things perfectly. We can't make mistakes. We can't, again, show emotions that aren't desirable, like sadness or worry. And if you're doing that to yourself, you're being critical and self-punishing, then let's try to shed that. Let's try to not be that way. And now in my personal life, try not to be self-punishing, self-critical, because I grew up always criticized. I was bullied severely. I was criticized for needing to do better academically and to constantly keep that up. And you're conditioned from a very young age to always do better, to accept criticism. If you're bullied, to kind of deal with that. And if you're holding that as an adult and you're still self-criticizing and self-punishing, it's a lot to hold.
Yeah.
And even thinking, why not be nice to yourself? Have self-compassion. Be okay sitting in a cafeteria on your own and not feeling the fear of judgment.
I was going to say, even worse than that, you can internalize that that's how you should have life. So like, I think if you've bullied or you've had abusive people around in your life, or people with kind of like that aren't kind to you, you almost think, and I've had this experience myself as an adult, when life's too good, I'm like, I should probably have some more people that bully me, maybe. Like, not kind of consciously, but almost subconsciously. I'm like, everyone's really nice to me at the moment. I wonder what's going to go wrong. And I think that can be one of the challenges, is like, I almost think it's normal to have people that bully, normal people that say kind of things that aren't very kind or helpful. Like I do, I run a men's group as well outside in my personal life, and there's been occasionally comments like, oh, this and that, and it's like, why are you doing that? Like, don't do that. Just it's good. Everyone likes it. It's fine. And I kind of reject the bully now, and I say like, I don't need that comment. That wasn't helpful. That wasn't encouraging. Like, classic example, I'm sure you've probably experienced yourself, but like, if one of the guys is like, sitting on the sofa, maybe like, I'll put an arm around him if he's feeling a bit low, or just put an arm around him to encourage him, and people are like, oh, that's a bit funny, isn't it? And you get those kind of comments. Is it? What's
But again, it's showing vulnerability. It's being affectionate in some way, which again, traditionally masculine men are not supposed to do that. And it's a bit funny because it's not what men do.
But I don't. I think we get to decide we are men and we get to
You can
decide
define
what
what masculinity means for you,
yeah,
or displays of masculinity.
and then you can put yourself in a world, and I think where the world reflects how you feel about yourself,
Yeah.
and you're around people that feel good about you, that encourage you, that aren't looking to tear you down, looking to boost your journey. And I think that's a wonderful place to be in. And you don't have to have people that abuse you. You don't have to have people that bully you. You don't have to tolerate mean comments. You don't have to have any of that stuff.
Yeah.
There's no reason why any of that should exist, and that's not a bad thing. And I think you can start to learn to go, oh, do you know, I'm just going to have friends who are good to me.
Exactly.
And that's wonderful.
Yeah.
Very healing.
What we deserve.
It is what you deserve, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's counter to your brain if your brain's been raised in an environment where that wasn't what you got, and you think, well, why do I deserve that? Minimize things, you know. Even if you have success, it's like, oh, it wasn't that big a deal. Well,
it's helping clients change those conditions of worth.
Yeah,
that define the sense of self from a young age.
Yeah. And you achieve if you achieve some stuff and you don't celebrate it, I always ask that to people. I'm like, oh, you know, if they've done a particular milestone in life, what are you going to do? Probably just go home. What do you mean? How can you just go, like, look what you've achieved? Like, how can you just go home and like do nothing? You've got to celebrate, and also celebrate with people you love, because that models something to them, and I think that's of real value.
Correct.
You know, why not celebrate yourself? It's a lovely thing to do.
Definitely.
We've touched on a lot of things.
Yeah.
I think a lot of different range of subjects, but I think what the core has been is, I think, discovering to some degree, both as individuals, a version of what being a man is, and not having that kind of dictated for us by the wider world that hasn't always been that helpful in terms of how it's formed that. But also as therapists, realizing that there isn't a lot of men in the field. Well, there are some, but it's less men in the field, and I think it's important to recognize that we have a role to play, and that for a lot of people that's an important part of their therapy journey, is finding a man that can work with them through what they're going through. So I think it's really important to see guys have these chats, but also as psychotherapists have these chats.
Yeah, and I think it was helpful to chat about our histories.
Yeah.
What got us into the field, and also our experiences with clients, because I don't want it to seem that it has to be the same work that we do with clients just because we're men. We have our own approaches, our own experiences, our own processes, and I think exploring that and how it impacts us as well.
Yeah.
And how we need to have our own spaces to process, work with clients, our own lives, and that we are human. I think that's quite important for clients to understand.
We are.
Yeah.
We are both human.
Yeah.
And I think that's important, to be humanize ourselves. And we do a lot of hard work each day with people. And I think it's really important that we look after ourselves in the meantime. And I even think part of this is, for me, like, I find these kind of conversations actually quite enjoyable and engaging. And I've really enjoyed talking to you today about all the things we've spoken about. It's nice to meet a like-minded people. It's almost like my people. And I think anyone who loves mental health and loves working in these fields are my people. And I think it's such a blessing to be around people that the conversation flows naturally with, and that have similar hearts for these things. So It's been really enjoyable talking to you today, Anthony.
Yeah, it was great talking to you too. And I think working in private practice is a privilege to have these spaces where we can just chat and not let it be like in a CPD or some other training, but just having a chat about what we do and why we do it and why we enjoy it.
Cool. Thank you, man.
Great. Thank you.